Well, hello and welcome to this hands-online learning session. I'm Paul Reimer with the AIMS Center, and I'm here with my colleague, Aileen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
At the AIMS Center, we're committed to working toward a more equitable world through math and science education. You can learn more about our work by visiting our website at aimscenter.org. Along the way today, you can use the chat feature to ask questions and the Q&A to ask questions and share your progress on our work together. We're here today to engage in some paper folding magic. Paper can be a great medium to explore STEAM ideas and content. Aileen, can you share a little bit about STEAM content that we'll be engaging in today?
Yes, so I'm really excited about this one because I think we tend to think of paper as, just an ordinary medium, but more and more we're seeing how paper can make these amazing things and how much we can learn from it and through it. So in our hands-on sessions, we've always intentionally reflected on what STEAM we notice in the activity. Where is the science? Where is the technology? Where's engineering? We see art sometimes and definitely mathematics. But I want us to think about this time, not just what we see there intentionally, but maybe just what we notice, because sometimes things rise to the surface that seem a little bit more dominant and we notice that more. And that could have to do with our experiences, maybe what we're learning during that time, maybe what we've been focused on. So a lot of different ways, but I wanted us to first focus on the technology piece, because I think that a lot of times we've talked about that technology is not just electronic devices like our computer or our tablets, but it also is all the tools that we use. Today, our common tool is paper, and paper can become in different colors, some sizes, textures, thicknesses. So we're going to use paper and we're going to use it to do some STEAM today. I'd like us to kind of think about not only the tool that we're using, but where are you seeing the other parts of STEM and where you notice them, and the chat as much as you want to kind of engage with us and share the information.
That's fantastic. So I was thinking about, as you were talking about paper as a technology, I can imagine that at one point, paper was in fact an incredible invention, an incredible innovative technology that changed the way people communicated. And thinking about that today and the variety of different tools that we have that are innovative, that seem to be sort of cutting edge, we don't often think, as you said, of paper as being something like that. But to think about what we can do with paper and how we can explore big ideas in STEAM through paper is really exciting. So I'm thrilled to be here. I hope all of you who are joining us are excited to be here today to join us in this hour of interactive, fun and playful activity, which focuses around learning together. So we're excited. So Aileen, so we're going to make two models out of paper today. Can you tell us more about the first one that we're going to be making?
Yeah, so we're increasing our making time, which we know everyone loves to do the making piece and to play and to engage. And we're going to think about paper. You're right. It has a great history about what paper's been used for. Envelopes are a way that we still communicate, but some people think of it as an archaic because we don't write as many letters to each other. But probably during the holidays, you got Christmas cards from family and friends. People still love getting things in the mail. So we're going to use an envelope for our first activity, and we're going to think about how things change as far as two-dimensional shapes to three-dimensional shapes. We see that a lot, and I'll mention some of those when we get into our making, but especially younger children, when they see that way of their square that's flat and what it means to have a cube that has, a third dimension coming out that they can hold in their hand and they feel what a box feels like. So also, we're going to think about, for older children, they might be investigating proportions. And so this allows some investigations around proportions, depending on the different envelopes that you might use. And so we'll look at some of those things that can engage children around this very simple thing that they could do at home. Hopefully this is something that parents can engage with their children, but as well, maybe teachers might want to use that in their distance learning classrooms.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that the ways in which we can utilize this playful, fun activity to investigate these important ideas and to make connections to the real world are just key. So again, welcome everybody. We're going to make sure that we have all of the necessary materials ready to go. So I'm going to kind of look here and see what we need. Today we're going to need some envelopes. So if you have an envelope, here I have a longer, kind of a letter-sized envelope. Variety of different envelopes could work for this. So with the envelope, we're going to have a pair of scissors. We're going to need a pencil or a pen, and then a ruler or some kind of a straight edge. So if you're making along with us at home, we're going to give you a few moments to gather these materials before we start. And as you gather them, we're going to talk a little bit more about these supplies. So let's talk a little bit more about these supplies. Aileen, what else can you tell us about the kinds of things we'll be using and needing today?
So I think a business envelope is a great starter for this activity. It's a great way to kind of start and do your first model. Also, I would encourage, we mentioned you might get cards in the mail. You can reuse envelopes for this model. So if you carefully open it at the top of your envelope, anything that comes in the mail, you can reuse it as part of this activity. So it's one of those activities that kind of opens and inclusive. You don't have to have some brand new envelopes. Use some that came in the mail. Maybe some things are still closed on the side, so you can quickly go gather some envelopes, open it very carefully at the top, and then they're ready to go. Also, using a pencil or a ballpoint pen works a little bit better than a marker. You're allowed to press a little bit, and that helps you with scoring the paper just a tad bit, so that when we go to the folding piece, the fold is a little bit easier. So especially for younger kids, sometimes those folds that are thicker are a little bit difficult. And you're right, any straight edge will work. It doesn't have to be a ruler. We're not measuring, we're just drawing some straight lines.
Okay, fantastic. So now that everyone has had a chance to take a moment to gather materials, let's get started. So Aileen, how do we get started?
All right, so I'm going to turn on my camera here so I can show you how I'm all set up here to go. And I have an envelope. It's not exactly a business, but it is a more longer envelope, so it'll work just fine. So first we want to make sure that our envelope is facing us horizontal, laying horizontal, with the flap side up towards us. This is especially helpful if you are not reusing it, but if you are reusing it, either way would work fine. But we want to be able to see that there. We're going to take our straight edge and we're going to match it to the opposite vertices here. And we want to draw a straight line. So we're drawing in the diagonals of this rectangle. And we're going to, and like I said, if you press just a little harder on the, while you draw this line, it'll score it just a little bit for you, for your folds. So you're going to draw a line from this corner down here, just like that. And then, so hopefully you can see that line there.
And then you did this with the flap closed, right?
Yes, I did it with the flap closed. That's correct.
Okay.
And it's okay that it's coming up. We're going to do some cutting next. A good question. And then draw your other diagonal. So maybe you're in geometry class and a lot of new vocabulary you're learning, like diagonals and maybe intersection or intersection points. So here we have our two diagonals and they have an intersection point right here. And these diagonals now separate our envelope into 4 separate sections, which all happen to be triangles. Talk about those triangles as well, thinking about if they're similar or they're congruent, lots of different geometry we can get into. And I would encourage, teachers as they're maybe demonstrating this to use that vocabulary as well as parents, because it's so important for kids to not only memorize maybe a vocabulary on a card, but to actually see it in play and see what it looks like when you're using it for something. So what we're going to do is when we take our scissors, we're going to cut off this top section, the top section that has the flap, including that flap. So I'm going to just turn it around here so you can see I'm just trying to cut up that. And so be as precise as possible with your corners. Go right to that intersection point and then stop there. And if you are using a new one, then your pieces, you're gonna have more than one piece. If you're reusing, it's probably sealed and it's a lot easier to get that piece out. There we go. Okay, so these smaller pieces that got cut off, I'm just going to sweep away. We don't need those at all. So that's what my envelope should look like when that is done. And for example, I have a purple one here that might be a little easier to see, which you can see envelopes comes in so many different sizes that it allows us to investigate what kind of models we'll have at the end, depending on what our envelopes look like. Here's another envelope I have that's a lot bigger, more of like a greeting card envelope. So once we have that in, now we're going to do some folding. So we're done with our pen or pencil and we're finished with our straight edge and our scissors. We're just going to do some folding and then we can put our model together. So we're going to use these lines now that we have left from our diagonals to help us do these folds. So I usually like to have that line facing me so I can fold the paper right on that line. And this is where I talked about that if you use a ballpoint pen or a pencil and press down just a little harder, it'll help you score that and it'll make that first fold a little bit easier. So you might need to press with your nail down just to get it nice and crisp. And what we're going to do on that same fold is not only fold it away from you, but also fold it towards you, which we call reversing the fold. So we want that fold nice and flexible. So that's why we would do it both ways there. So it should be able to fold down this way and now back towards me very easily. Do the exact same thing on the other side.
I always think it's interesting when you fold and you sort of create overlapping shapes. There's a lot of other shapes that you can see inside there. So I'm seeing sort of like other triangles being formed as I'm folding over, kind of what hangs down below mine. I think there's a lot of fun conversations that can happen about what you see as the folding happens.
Yes, definitely. This wouldn't, I don't think, be considered pure origami because origami uses, a square sheet of paper, but it does have a lot of the same characteristics where we're having one model, we're seeing those folds overlap each other, and we're seeing a lot of our shapes just come alive or are very, very distinct. And if you wanted to pause, you could talk so much about the triangles you're seeing, maybe name them by the sides or their angles. I know in fourth grade, a lot of students talk about obtuse, acute angles. So there's a lot of mathematics happening here. All right, so once we've done that, there's only one more fold that we have to put in there. And that doesn't have a line for us, but it's simply just folding it in half, taking this edge, meeting it with this edge as precise as possible, and then folding that down. And just like the other folds, we'll reverse this one as well. So we'll fold it down and then we can just flip our paper over and fold it down the other side. All right, so we drew into diagonals and we cut out the top section. Then we folded on those two diagonals in towards us and out because we wanted to reverse them, and then a half fold right in between. All right, so I said that this was much like seeing a two-dimensional shape become a three-dimensional shape. And now we're going to see that come alive right now. So what we want to do first is we want to hold our envelope maybe straight up, what I would call up, and then we would want to open that a little bit, and we're going to press down, and you'll feel that the model will stop at the folds that you already have. So if I press down on both sides, I'll see that those folds will kind of just push out that way. And I can make them much more crisp if I just press them down just a little bit more. Now I have something that's holding this shape, it's up. And the last step here is to insert one into the other. So if I want to insert this one inside, just put that right inside. It'll tug just a little bit, but then if you just slide it in, you'll see that you'll get really solid. This one, you'll see, and I'll do this with the purple one so you can see. Remember, this one was a lot longer, and maybe we can say it was thinner. If I do the same thing with this one, you'll see how the models are similar, but also different.
That is amazing. I tell you, I as soon as I sort of pushed this up and decided which one would go inside the other, and then it created this shape, I was kind of shocked. I was having this like emotional reaction of like, oh, I don't know if anybody who at home building with us had a similar reaction, but I encourage you to share your immediate kind of response, either in a word or two. Like, what did you think when you saw that, when that happened? Because there's an element, I think, of surprise. There's an element of, wow, I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah. And so I wanted to go over a little bit of things we see in our world that is kind of like that, because hopefully we're introducing children to a little bit of what that's like. So we know engineers use this, right? So here's a really simple example of how engineers use this. I have this Izzy soda crate. When it's folded down, pretty flat. But all I have to do is press on the bottom corner and the top corner. And now I have a three-dimensional object that has a use. It solves a problem. It allows me to carry 4 of the Izzy sodas with a handle at the top, right? We see those things if we look at the things we carry, maybe our coffee, or see our parents carry our coffee in, if we have multiple ones. We also see that in pop-up books. Pop-up books are designed to be nice and flat to fit on your shelf, but when you open them up, you get this 3-dimensional amazing thing come out of that dimension and produce that 3rd dimension. So kids are seeing this around them, and I think it's really powerful to be able to make something that does that, and to see how the flat design then produces a different 3D design. So if you go and you find different envelopes and maybe even think about, well, what will that look like if I do it again? How will this be similar or different? And that's what we're going to give you a little bit of time to do.
I love that. I think it's a fantastic question. And I noticed in the chat, Cindy suggests that as well. It would be great to ponder what might happen, before you even sort of make that final sort of assembly move. What might happen as you press this up into here? What's going to happen? Well, it might not fit. It might fit. What do you think the shape will look like? And I love your point right now about what if you tried a different envelope? How do you think the tetrahedron would be different? Would it be taller? Would the different faces still be triangles? What would those triangles look like? I think those are all really fantastic sort of predictions that can be made in anticipation before the build, before the sort of the final steps of the build are conducted. So I think this is fantastic exploration, and so many different variables that can be changed as you try to move forward. And yeah, I think just sort of even as Heidi says in the chat, this is a great use for all the envelopes that come in the mail. Everyone with us today, I think we have put an end to the term junk mail. I think there's no such thing as junk mail anymore because it can be tetrahedron mail, right? So what we want to do right now is give you all a chance to create another tetrahedron with a different sized envelope. If you have more of the same size, you might feel free to just create another one. But if you have a different envelope, we'd like you to try another tetrahedron. And as you create that tetrahedron, we'd like you to think about what you notice, what you wonder. If you'd like to share your photos online and one of our social media platforms, please tag us at Ames Ed so we can follow along. And we're going to take about a 5-minute play break right now for you to continue to build and to try another tetrahedron. I know I've got just the envelope I'm going to try during the next 5 minutes, but we want everyone to have an opportunity to go ahead and try another envelope and try building another tetrahedron. And we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're excited to be back again. We hope that you had a wonderful play break. If you want to share any thoughts in the chat, what did you notice about another tetrahedron? If you have specific questions, feel free to ask those. I found an envelope that was a little bit more approaching the size of a square, and that envelope made a kind of a shorter, I don't know if you can see in my camera here, shorter tetrahedron that sort of the triangles actually look a little bit closer to equilateral triangles. And so it definitely sort of changed the shape, although it's not a a standard pyramid that sort of goes all the way up to a single point. It still has kind of got that slant, that oblique there as well. And so I was kind of thinking about the relationship again between the 2D and the 3D. I think Lisa asked a really great question in our Q&A, and she says, would the 3D, if opened up and cut along the scores, make a clear net? So the relationship between the shape and the net is reinforced. And I think that would be a really interesting investigation to sort of open it back up and to cut along those score lines and to sort of fold it out so that there aren't any overlaps like a traditional net would be. A net is a 2D pattern that folds up into a three-dimensional shape. And so I think that would really be fascinating to cut along these scores and to be able to look at the variety of different shapes. You would probably see all of them. The base on mine is, one of those goes across that fold line, so you wouldn't want to cut that, but you'd want to cut those others and see what that would look like. I think it's a fascinating question, worth exploring for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we talked about this as we were preparing, that there are two faces that overlap each other. And so there's two faces two triangles in our flat design that won't be visible once we fold it into our tetrahedron. So it will depend on which one will, what side you go into. But we were talking about if you wanted to put something in there, like you wanted to make a gift box or something, but as well, if you wanted to decorate it, you would have to know which side you were going to put into the other, because then that side wouldn't even show. So that's one of the things about the net that makes that interesting. You'd have a duplicate of two of those faces, because we have a tetrahedron here because we have four faces, and tetra has that relationship with the number 4. So we have 4 faces. That's why we have a tetrahedron, which is like some of our pyramids that we see. But we noticed that this one doesn't like line up as perfectly as maybe you would see on a poster or something. That's what makes the different proportions of the envelopes creating different tetrahedrons so interesting, I think.
I think so. I think the idea of if the envelopes are proportional, like Stephanie says, Stephanie posed a question, if the envelopes are proportional, will the tetrahedrons also have proportional sides and altitudes? And so I think that's a wonderful question to explore. And I think the question might be sometimes, but you'd have to try a few and kind of figure that out. I like that some have tried different envelopes. That Concepcion tried a large yellow envelope. I wonder if you mean maybe it's sort of like that letter-sized envelope.
Oh, yes.
And so, some envelopes don't work. And I think it's a great question to ask, well, why don't some envelopes work? And what is the problem? And then sort of thinking about, what does the envelope need to look like in order for it to work in that way? Oh, she says it does work.
No, really, that is a good question though, because I think you come to a place where those dimensions won't fit inside the other. And the question, which one will give you that perfect altitude from that mid vertice that you want, which this one kind of almost did, but it's a little off. Right. But that's another, like, what dimensions work, how far can you go, but then like maybe how thin the envelope is, or how much it's like a square, where it's equal to both sides. Will it still work if it's a perfect square? I think those are great questions, and those are great ways that you can explore this activity. It's very appropriate for a very young child who wants to do some art and explore 2-dimension, 3-dimension, see the difference. And then all the way up, I mean, to college level, I think they could just keep exploring and seeing different things that you can happen.
Right. I mean, this has a very high ceiling in terms of thinking about surface area and thinking about volume, the volume and the surface area. How are those related with these different shapes? And I love for very, very young kids, I love the idea of decorating it. And then maybe after it's folded to kind of go, oh, does it look like you thought? Or did you, as you had pointed out, Aileen, did you decorate a part that's now not showing? And where did that go? And how might you make that show? You know, you can even change the way it's folded up. So fantastic. I think this is really great. Those of you who are building along with us, we'd love to hear any more ideas or thoughts, extensions, ways that you think this could be utilized. If you do try it with others, with children, please share your ideas. As you know, we continue these online webinars. In fact, if you saw our play slide, you probably saw some things about rockets on there. And we failed to update that with the most current topic today of paper folding magic, but it does give you a clue that we do a lot of different kinds of things around here. So if you didn't get to see that rockets one and that interested you, you can find all of our archived hands-online webinars on our website and follow along and build. So, well, I think we need to move on to the next one. So we're going to move on to a second model out of paper. And Aileen, can you tell us a little more about what we're going to be making now?
Okay, so we're going to make something called a magic square. It's kind of like a paper fidget toy, I would say, if I was going to describe it to someone. It's completely out of paper. We don't need any adhesives. We're going to need some scissors and just a square sheet of paper. And pretty much it. We need a marker to make some markings because it rotates in a way that it changes. So you want to kind of mark those pieces and kind of see those changes. Lots of ways to decorate and see some art in this. So we'll be looking at that as well. But we won't get any playtime on this one. So we'd really love for you to just continue to correspond with us, show us what you built, how you changed it. Love to see those photos on social media.
Fantastic. So you mentioned we need a square sheet of paper, and I've got sort of a larger piece of construction paper here that I've made into a square. So this is, you know, I'm sure different size squares could be used. Is that right?
Yeah. You can use any square size that you want to use. I'd recommend a little bit bigger for younger kids. I've made them really small. Once you make it, you can just investigate and explore all the ways you can make it with different papers, different mediums, different sizes.
Okay, fantastic. And then the other thing is we'll again need our pair of scissors, and then as you mentioned, some different colored markers, right? So I've got a couple different markers here, different pens, pencils, markers, but you also mentioned that those should be colors that are visible on the paper. So I might, if I'm using a particular color paper, I might want to stay away from a marker color that is similar to the paper.
Yes. And also, I think someone recommended that just being careful with the markers because some of them seep through depending on what paper you're using. So that might go to a different layer. So if you're scared that your marker might do that, like a Sharpie would probably do that, then probably use like crayons or color pencils with younger kids, which will work completely fine. I like to use stickers too. So if you have some stickers, that works as well.
Oh, okay. So just little small stickers that you can put on as well would do the trick. That's great to know as well. Okay, well, hopefully everybody at home has had a chance to grab these materials. Again, we're going to need a square sheet of paper, a pair of scissors, and some different colored markers or stickers. And so let's go ahead and get started. How do we get started, Aileen?
All right, so let's get started. So we're going to make something that will look sort of like this when we're done. So you see, I use my stickers and it will rotate through the center. So if you see this here and I open it back up, you see now red stickers. And then if I close it and open back up, now you're seeing green stickers, and that's the investigation. Like, how many layers does this have? Which is something that we can explore. So I have a rectangular sheet of paper and I'm going to cut off to make my square. And I would just caution, a lot of times we want to make our square by folding on the diagonal and then cutting off that piece. But we don't want a fold line like that on this particular model. That would kind of alter those fold lines. So we want a nice perfect square that doesn't have any fold lines on it from its diagonal. We are going to put some folds in it though. So the first folds we're going to put in there are folding it in half. So we're going to fold the square in half in both directions. So let's just do that first. So in half one way, open it back up. I usually open it back up before I fold it in half instead of folding it in half and then half again. It just makes the precision a little bit better if you don't have too many layers.
I imagine it could get hard to fold as well the thicker it gets.
It does. So you'll see, when I've seen a lot of origami videos, they'll usually, open it back up and then do the next fold line. So we fold our square sheet of paper in half both ways. We have our 4 spaces here, our 4 quadrants. And now we're going to fold the edges into that midline. So we'll do it one at a time. So this edge to that fold line, that now is kind of my guide.
So this is folded just to that center line, is that right?
Yes, just to the center line. And that's where you want to put in your crease. And then bring the other one. And now this paper that you just folded can kind of be your guide. You want to meet them in the middle, not have too much space in the middle. Just like that. So when you open it back up, you have now rectangles. You should have 8. And we're going to do this one more time on the opposite side. So rotating it 90 degrees and then doing it one more time on that other half. So that we have now squares.
And again, even in the folding and unfolding, I think it might be fun to sort of ask participants, whoever's doing this activity, what do you think it's going to look like when you open it back up?
Yes. And there's a lot of questions on fractions. If anyone has children who are learning fractions right now, lots of questions you could be asking while you're doing this whole folding exercise here on fractions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we have our paper. We have a nice array, 4 by 4, right? And so what we need to do is we need to remove this middle square, the 2 by 2 square here. So to do that, the way I do it is I just fold it in half again. And I'm going to make a cut along this fold that's inside. And I'm going to stop right there. Just make one straight line that stops at that intersection point where your fold lines intersect. Okay. So just to that point, and then open your paper back up and then fold it in half in the opposite way and do the exact same thing. Right on that line, up into that fold.
I can kind of see that that cut I made previously has kind of lined up to make a long cut there, a long space.
Sometimes your corners will be a little sticky, so you can just pull those out, but you should be left with now a square.
I have to say, Aileen, that's a brilliant way to take the square out of the middle, because I was about ready to just take my scissors and just poke it into the middle and start cutting the inside out.
Well, I think that's a good question for younger kids. Like, how are we going to cut that square out? And that's probably what they'll try to do first is to doing that. That works. Just looking at different ways we can cut that out.
Right. And I think, right, in the chat, I see it's a frame, it really does look like a frame now with the inside, what shape is missing, what shape's on the outside. That's fun.
Yes, that's so much fun. Okay, so now we're going to fold it up and We're going to work counterclockwise. So we're going to first fold up this bottom flap. Okay, and once in a while you'll have to probably like press on your creases nice and flat. And as we're going through, we'll have to do that as well. Now we're going to do this right flap, just bringing the flap over towards the center, like that. We still have a frame, but it's a different frame. And then we're going to do the top flap. And press that down. Okay, so what we have left is to do our left frame, and this is where it gets a little tricky because we have to reverse this bottom fold. So if we open it up, I'm just going to open mine. Don't open yours up, but I want you to be able to see what fold I'm talking about. I'm just going to make a mark on it. Okay, so we need to take this fold and move it into here. I'm going to try to do it as slow as I can, and I don't mind doing it a few times, but we have to reverse it. This has to stay intact though. And if we can reverse it, you'll see that if I can hold it this way and this way at the same time, this will come inside of it. It almost like gets tucked in.
Whoa. Like... I think I might need to see that again.
Let's do that again. I'll bring that out. Okay. Okay, so I folded bottom, side, top, and I have to do the left side. And I have a fold in here, which I try to make with a darker line that I need to reverse. So I need to push this inside. Okay. So when it starts reversing, I need to keep this though still folded down at the same time. So it's going to flip over, but this side's going to have to come in.
Yes. Okay. Those of you folding with us at home, I hope that the video is able to sort of get the dimensions of how that folds inside. But that's another whoa moment for me.
Yeah. And that's what I was trying to show on this red one that's still open. This is the line here that comes inside, that one fold piece. So when you come to that left piece, you want to tuck this in, but still make sure that this holds its integrity up on the top. Everything stays the same. This is just kind of reversing that fold all at the same time. All right, so anyone in the chat need me to do that again? How are we feeling?
Yeah, feel free to let us know if you need to see that again or if everyone's with us. We have some wows and some very nices, but we have some I can't. So help, do it again, Aileen, maybe one more time.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So I'm going to start just from the beginning. Okay. So I have my frame. And this is that tricky fold right here. I marked it. Okay, so first the bottom flap, the right flap, and the top flap. Okay, so this one will need to tuck into here. In order to do that, it has to reverse it. It has to be reversed. So I'm kind of pushing it so it'll reverse, but I want this fold to still stay. Once you get it done and you fold it flat, it just wants to do it after that. But it's like that first time you do it, it kind of gets some pushback there.
Right. And I noticed that the upper left square kind of has to fold over with it. Is sort of what I've noticed as I was tucking it under. If I encouraged that upper left square to kind of fold over with it, kind of folding over, it went into there. So great. And just to let everybody know, we are recording this session, and we will be posting this on our website. So you can come back to this. If you don't quite get it now, please don't give up. You can come back to it and continue to try it and catch up with us too as well. So
yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and do some of the layers so that you'll understand what we were talking about. I have these little happy face stickers, which I'll use just to be a little quicker, but it's helpful to use, you know, markers, like we said, anything that you want. So I usually put like the same color on the top layer. So I'll use like 4 purples here.
if I'm using a marker, I can make circles or shapes with my marker, but they should all be the same on this one first layer. Is that right?
Yes, try to make them all the same. Even if you have just one color marker, so you could do hearts and then stars and then happy faces and then flowers to just kind of distinguish the layers from each other. So once you have something that you've marked every quadrant with here, then we want to just make sure that you have your folds nice and flat. So you might have to just, you know, with your fingers kind of flatten those folds. And then I think it's this first one that you can fold in half, but I think you can go either way. Yeah, you can go either way. So some places on this magic square, you can go vertical or horizontal. I'll let you decide, but if you see, as I fold it in half and then open it back up, I don't have any purple happy faces anymore. I have a new layer here, new 4 squares. So I'm going to mark this layer. I'm going to use a different color. So I'm going to use red this time. And then before I go to another layer, I'm just going to flatten down the square to just kind of help those folds to get nicely creased.
Aileen,
And you see that
can you go back? I think your video just sort of froze a little bit. Could you go back to where you started with the first stickers and then how you got that new layer?
Yes. So if I could go back here. So this is the first layer here with purple stickers. This is when I was done with my flap fold inside. And then I believe I did. Okay, so then I just folded it in half vertically. And then open it back up and then add a new layer.
Yeah, it opens up to a new layer. So you sort of have to kind of play with it a little bit and find how it wants to open up for a new layer.
Yes, this first one, I believe you can open up either way. So if I had done a horizontal fold and then open it up, I'd be at a different layer.
Okay. So you can actually go 2 different ways from there.
Yeah, so you have some choice where you go. And that's one of the interesting things about this. Like, how do you decide? Could you go from one color to another, like deliberately? I think there's so many other investigations I like to kind of see through this because there's some patterning here. But so if I go back to the purple, you'll see that I went vertically and I was at the red layer. Now at this red layer, there's no opening here. You can see that there's some flaps here, but there's none vertically. So this kind of forces me, I only can go horizontal in this case. When I close it horizontally and then I'll rotate it just so I can open it back up, I'll be at a different layer, but that layer won't have anything in there. It won't have any. I haven't seen this layer yet because there's no stickers there. This is another new layer.
So do you suggest that we just sort of continue to try to fold and then open to new layers, and then when you find a blank layer to put a different color on that layer in the 4 boxes, or a different shape or a different sticker?
Yeah, anything that will mark that layer for like a new one that you found, and then see how many layers that you have. It's also interesting to just experiment with the patterning, like what colors do you see or what symbols do you see if you're using symbols. how are they, how is the sequence changing, or is the sequence changing?
Right. I actually did sort of, I'm using one color marker, but I ended up doing squares in one. I've got circles. And right now, the way I have it, I've got circles on one side, and on the other side, I've got squares. And then if I open up the squares section, I end up with triangles.
Yeah, so there's lots of layers. I think there's more layers than we think there are. And so I know we're going down to a little of our time, but I wanted us to just, you know, start everyone off and let you investigate further. But also I wanted to show you the one that I finished here. So this is the one I showed you at the beginning. It was already finished in this darker color, but I'll just go ahead and open mine. This one is already completed with the different stickers. When you do it and then you open it, it's interesting to look at the pattern. Now, you can have students do it either ways, for them to go through the layers and discover them and see if you discovered all the layers, you should have a sticker in every quadrant in the front and in the back. If you missed a layer, well, should be pretty visible here, but you also can see which of these squares go together. So I use orange stickers. So these two squares and the layer that's in the magic square go with these bottom two, which are both orange. And the reds are actually kind of diagonal from each other right here. And these two yellows would be on the magic square. So if teachers like to use this, you might have students, you know, before you do the folding and while it's in frame, you might have them put something on there if you want to use it for sight words or words that go with the scene, with the story, so that when they're going through, they could see those words that maybe have some kind of a relationship together. Mm-hmm. And you can do that deliberately if you open it up and can see and can use that pattern to know which of these will be on the same layer together when the magic square is folded.
That's what a great way to think about applications across literacy, across storytelling opportunities, to think about what you could put on here in terms of, could be characters, it could be, I'm even thinking you could put 4 characters in a story, and when they get to that layer, we can talk about or retell the story and then open to a new layer with a new story or that sort of thing. That's really exciting to see all of the different applications. And I just opened mine up to a new layer, and I'm kind of like excited. Oh, another one. I thought I had found them all, but here was another one. And I know Jennifer asks, how many layers are there? I don't know that we want to even give the answer out at this point in time. I think everybody should keep figuring it out. And I love that you can open it up and then you can see. And so if you have some squares that don't have a mark or a sticker in them, mm-hmm. you know that there are probably some more layers to accomplish. So a fun way to think about problem solving in a paper folding experience. Really exciting. So right, I think you know, what kinds of things can we think about? We can talk about how many layers we can find. I like the idea about unfolding it and looking at the patterns, as you pointed out, where those different parts are. Other ways to use this magic square in the classroom. Really exciting. Any final thoughts about this, Aileen, that you want to share?
No, I would just say, you know, have fun, explore it. Every time I redo or revisit this fold, I find out something I didn't notice before and something else that I'm curious about. So I think it's a great way to explore. I'm thinking especially for elementary teachers, you might do this for math class, but then use it for language class in vocabulary or spelling words or doing, or just ways to enhance the learning environment, but have all of these things, you know, investigations, really interacting with each other. I think that students will have a lot of fun, and we'll start making them on their own without you having to tell them, because here's another tool that they could use and another way for them to just express creativity.
I agree. I think it's a wonderful tool. And now I'm interested in different sized ones. I can make a larger one, can make a smaller one. Just because I think when you do that, that you have all kinds of different opportunities to think about that.
Here's a really small one I made. It cut the sticker into 4, and I realized that there's some interesting patterns going on here, and here's a smaller one. So, you can just explore and be creative and really think about this in different ways.
Right. And I love that this activity involves making, it involves tinkering. It really involves sort of that whole aspect of the aesthetics and related to art, the science of folding paper and strength and resilience of the paper. And then, of course, as we talked about at the very beginning, as you pointed out, technology, the technology of paper, a very simple medium, but capable of doing some amazing things. So, Aileen, thank you so much for taking us on this journey. I think everyone would agree that there is a bit of magic to both of these things that we were able to create today. And there's the element of surprise, the element of wonder and curiosity. So thank you so much. For those of you who are with us, we're excited to announce that we will be hosting in the future our very first play shop on February 27th from 9:30 to 11:30. And you may have heard of workshops. You may have been to a lot of different workshops. Well, we've taken that idea to mean that educators gather to work. And we believe that what we need is more play. So we're calling them play shops. And right now, we are about to raffle off 3 admission tickets to our upcoming play shop, which is a $65 value. If you attend our play shop, you will be receiving some materials in the mail, and Aileen will be facilitating a 2-hour session on paper imagineering. More creative ways to use paper for creative objects, for evocative creation, for making and tinkering with paper, to really highlight the science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics involved in these activities. So we're going to raffle off 3 free admission tickets, $65 value, and Chris is going to spin the wheel here, and you must be present to win. If you do win, would you please let us know in the chat? So Chris, go ahead, and I think your wheel is starting to spin, but it's oh, Chris, that's too small for me to see. I can't see who it is because we're sharing the paper imagineering screen.
It's Joan.
Oh, it's Joan.
Yes.
Joan, are you with us?
Saflita?
I think Joan is here. I've seen Joan chatting.
Yes.
Okay, so Joan, you've won a $65 ticket.
Congratulations.
Congrats, Joan, to join us in February for our Play Shop series. Fantastic. Chris, let's spin it again. And this is for Trina. Trina, are you with us today? Is Trina still with us? Was Trina able to join us? Must be present to win. So we were looking at whether or not folks were able to join us. Must be present to win. Give us a little shout out in the chat, Trina, if you are with us. Laura, these are by names. And so, oh, good question. I don't know what name, but all of our participant names are on our wheel. But I don't see Trina here. So Chris, let's spin again. We have a winner, Sandra. Sandra, are you with us? Sandra, this is Sandra Paiva. Is that correct? I hope I pronounced that right. I see Sandra here Yeah, okay, fantastic. And let's do one more, Chris. And the third winner is Cindy. Cindy, are you with us? I think I see you on the chart. Cindy, yes, woohoo! Congratulations to our three winners. Chris will be in touch with you with a coupon code for you to join us in February. I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. Please visit us on our website for more hands online webinars. You are also welcome to revisit this one. We should have it posted in a couple days. So if you need to sort of revisit those folds or kind of go back to see what we did and how we did it, you should feel free to join us online with that recorded webinar. We'll be back in February for another free session on boats that float. We encourage you to join us for that. Again, that's free, and there's a registration link on our website. Please continue to share ideas about how you use this activity. Visit us on the web at aimcenter.org. Thank you, Aileen. Thank you, Chris. And thanks to all of you who joined us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everyone.